Welcome to PEP Talk. I'm your host, Yajasi Peppy Parke. Delighted to be presenting to you Jelani Horton, who is the leader and producer of the Virgin Islands band Bambu Station. Stick with us, we'll be right back. So, Brother Farouk, thank you so much for coming to the show.
To be in these places at the time that. So yeah, I'm in the right place at the right time.
Hear what happened now. I told you the Jamaican accent was gonna come out. I'd love to be able to name all the bands, and I can. But I know I'm gonna miss.
You've been called selfless, you've been called kind, loving, all kinds of stuff. We know you're passionate about.
Talk about your little 10-month-old son. Yeah. Talk about that. Your pride and joy, of course.
I love my son. His name is Jawari, and he was born on Christmas Day.
Wow.
So Jelani, welcome to PEP Talk. It's been a while that I wanted to have you on the show, so you're finally here.
Finally.
All right, so I know you because back in the day, maybe 2006, I used to be a publicist for the band. But there's a lot of people who are watching who might not know about Jelani Horton and about Bambu Station. So in a nutshell, just give them a brief overview of who you are, and then we'll get into the band later on.
Okay. Well, I'm Jelani Horton from St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. I, by profession, have been a family mediator, and that's where my passion has been. I have 3 sons, a lovely wife, and I love the simple things in life.
Beautiful.
So that's me.
That's you, okay? And we know there's more to you. We know you're a poet, you're a songwriter, you're a producer, resume long. But we want to talk about Bambu Station. What were you doing prior to 1996 when you had the vision to form this band?
Well, I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and I was the manager of the family mediation program at the D.C. Superior Court. And through the work there, I saw a lot of things that were important to me, specifically dealing with families and the hardships that families go through when they're getting a divorce or dealing with custody, child support, things like that. And so my interest in those areas naturally evolved into the songs that I started to write, the poetry that I started to express, you know.
Okay, and at what age did you realize that you had the musical bug within you? Because you grew up in the islands. We know how the island living is. At what point in your childhood or maybe, you know, adolescent years did you say, I want to be a singer-songwriter?
I didn't actually come to that kind of realization until I was finished with college. So I was at least 5 years out of college when I started a friend of mine that grew up with me in St. Thomas invited me to his studio because he knew I wrote poetry.
Okay.
And I went to his studio, and instead of just reciting a poem, I started to sing.
Okay. And
I've been in the studio ever since. You know, that's like 12 years later, 13 years later. So it's, you know, I always was impacted by music. The last poets, Butler, what was his name? Jerry Butler. You know, my uncle used to play these old records that used to drive me crazy. But as I got older and was out on my own, I saw myself singing these songs, Earth, Wind and Fire, Bob Marley and the Wailers, you know, Steel Pulse. All these things that had messages, you know, that was still in my consciousness, you know. So, so music was always with me. After I finished college and started to do Bambu Station, I started to learn the history of my own family. My grandmother was a guitar player and a banjo player. She played in a band in Tatola. I never knew this. She didn't tell me that until she saw me playing guitar as an adult. You know, my father, he was a flautist, played flute. Grandfather was a master musician. I didn't grow up with my father or grandfather, so I didn't know that.
Right.
Until I myself was in a band, you know. So the realization as to what I'm passionate about, you know, I've been passionate about sports, you know, I've been passionate about mediation and problem solving, but I have to say music has been the highest passion that I've tapped into so far.
Beautiful. So let's go back to 1996. You said you're going to start this band. Talk about getting the other members to form this band. Because I know over the years how it go in bandland. You change members. I think when I met you, you had a different guitarist, maybe a different bassist. Talk about the initial members of the band and then how the band has transitioned back to present day 2012 and the changing of those members.
Yeah. Well, growing up in St. Thomas, the bands were really calypso bands. Mandingo Brass, Imaginations, Eddie and the Movements. So, and I really wasn't a calypso person, except when Carnival come around, right? But once I was in the States, in college and stuff, in Washington, D.C., I used to go down to Adams Morgan area and hang out at a place called Mr. Henry's and a band called Positive Vibrations. I used to go see Positive Vibrations with Brother Carl Malcolm, you know? So I say, okay, I want to do music. Let me see what it looks like, you know? And he had a drummer, wicked drummer. Her name was Anita, turned out to be his wife.
Yes.
Right? And so, you know, I look at them and playing and stuff, and then I ran into some guys from back home named Midnight.
Right.
And at that time, you know, I went in a club and there were like 5 people in the club, you know, and they playing their songs. And so I started to see, you know, go out and study, you know. And so then I started to identify musicians that not only were talented, but that had the attitude and the courage to play original music, you know. So I've been through membership changes over the years. However, it's been like a family situation, you know, because all the members, past and present, we still cool, we still good, you know. So it's a journey, it's a passion, and maybe at the time we didn't have the communication skills to work things out or whatever. Someone they want to move back home, whatever the case may be, you know. So so at that time in 1996, I didn't play any instrument. It was just a vision. Actually, there were no band members until like a year after I formed the band.
Okay.
I formed the band, but I didn't have a band.
So you called it Bambu Station.
I called it Bambu Station.
Band. So you had a vision without the action playing out.
Correct.
You didn't think about being a solo artist?
No, because I've never been the type of person to be a solo artist or to be out in the spotlight. I've always been great as a team player.
Okay.
It has evolved into, as the lead singer naturally, my face is who is seen most of the times. I'm doing most of the interviews. So I am happy being a part of a family. And if I need to be in a role of lead singer with the spotlight on me, so be it. You know?
Okay. Yeah. And when you were talking earlier, you mentioned some important stuff. You spoke about Carl Malcolm and Positive Vibrations, who we are going to interview on it, but it's great that you made that connection to someone who is a veteran. You came up, you saw him performing, and you got some inspiration from him. And here you are, what is that, 1996 to 2012? Is that 16 years?
Yeah, something like that.
That's a long time. What has been the highlight of your career being the leader for Bambu Station in the 16 years? The
highlight? We've been very fortunate. We've been very blessed to travel the world. We haven't had major distribution. We haven't had the big record companies to distribute us and the big budgets. But we've been to Israel, several countries in Europe several times. We've been to South America, you know, and we've had some fantastic moments. A few days ago, we came from Brazil and we did a show in Bahia. And Bahia is where most of the people of African descent live. You know, that's where they are in Brazil. And the show in Bahia was incredible. I didn't have to sing a note.
Okay, I want to talk about that because a lot of people who are doing reggae, they don't want to move out of their comfort zone. They think that the Caribbean loves reggae, Jamaica loves reggae, so they seem to be boxed into the space. What gives you the courage to go to a place like a Brazil, like a Israel, to go somewhere where most Caribbean people think that reggae is not that known and or accepted?
Well, let me speak to something that I see and feel. There are people who sing reggae because they grew up in the Caribbean, they have an accent, and they want to express themselves. That's cool. I have been a mediator at heart and soul. That's what I do. And I write songs to those experiences, from those experiences. And so I am not playing reggae. We are not playing reggae. We call it rockers, because we come to rock people's soul, touch them. We don't want them leaving our performance saying, that was a great show. We would rather them be silent and just introspective about what they just felt, you know? So when your comfort zone, you know, we sang in front of so many people perform that don't speak English.
Right.
You know, one lady came up to us after the show, and I didn't know whether she was drunk or not, you know, and she was, you know, very aggressive and shaking my hand and everything. And then later on, she hung around. So when I came down from backstage onto the floor to greet a brother that was in a wheelchair, she came over again. You know, and she shook my hand. She gave me a band for my wrist and everything. And one of the brothers in the band speaks Portuguese, and he had spoken to her. And when we went later on, we were in the van, he said, man, that was a real special thing. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, that lady who gave you that band, she said she didn't understand the lyrics, but the feeling of the song brought back her memories of, it put her in touch with when she was sexually assaulted, and she had a child from that assault. And she said it just brought out these emotions in her, you know? And so that's our goal.
Right, right.
You know, to impact lives, not, you know, that was a bad show, Bambu Station mash up the show. You know, them things don't mean nothing to us.
So how do you feel? Because you're telling me the story about this woman who came to you after the show, and I oftentimes ask performers and artists, especially when they're performing to a crowd who doesn't speak that language. And they'll tell you that the test of good music is if someone is singing or performing to you in a different language and it touches you so much that it drives you to a particular experience and you really enjoy the music. What emotion did you feel when that brother shared that story about that woman?
Humbled.
Humbled.
In awe, you know. I started being in music as a full adult, you know, so I've had time to mature and different things as a person. So it's great that I'm able to, and then working in mediation with families in crisis, you see all kind of emotions. And so it's a very humbling situation, you know. You're in a position of power. When you go to a show, you have to look up at the performer because they're on the stage.
Right.
So naturally, you're in a position physically of power because people looking up to you. And then when you tap into the emotions, you become influential. And when you perform in front of people who don't speak your language, it magnifies the importance of music and how universal it is. You know, there's a band, Black Sheep, Lady Black Sheep Mambazo out of South Africa. I don't understand a word the brothers are sing, but I could turn on their CD and it I'm transcended. I could put on some Sade and she sing Only Love Gets Us Through, or Hallelujah, or Jezebel, and I am transformed. You know, I know what she's saying, but the vibe, the spirit of it, you know, impacts us as human beings. Frequencies, and a lot of us don't look at it like that, but when you listen to a Buddhist chant, you know, when you get a chance, bring up, what's her name? Tina Turner chanting Namye Rengekyo.
I know that chant.
But when you hear Tina Turner chanting and go into her heavens, you're going to have a new appreciation for it because it's frequencies. Certain frequencies impact us in different ways. When I'm making a song, sometimes I intentionally use a particular note that channels a particular reaction in people, frequency. So we have to be mindful. We try to be responsible. All the artists we've worked with, from Rima to Nayora to Pressure Bush Pipe, Starland Family, we try to always record things that's positive and that will be helpful. So it don't have to just be Bambu Station vibes. It could be anybody else vibes that we're working with, but it has to be positive to impact our community.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then I'm going to ask you one question, and then we are going to go for break. And when we come back from break, we're going to speak specifically about this new album, Children of Exodus, which was released Cinco de Mayo on May 5th. But before that, one question. Has the vision that you had for Bambu Station changed over the years? I know you've acquired some personal knowledge. You travel, you do everything. Did you initially start out wanting to have that particular impact on the human spirit?
Wow, great question. And honestly, no. It has changed into wanting to make an impact. But initially, it was about just getting things out your head and out your heart, and then when you see the impact it has, you either make a decision to go, you have a decision to go along certain paths. Yesterday, Brother Papa Wabe, who has supported us for years, he has a radio show on Saturdays in Baltimore, Maryland. He played a new song that was released from Jamaica for me by a very popular artist. And he just played 15 seconds of it. I was like, you could turn it off now. Because his consciousness here, and then very slackness in this new single here. So in my life, I can't do that, because I have children and it's just, we have too much negative, so. All
right, very good. So I've totally enjoyed this first segment of the conversation. When we come back, we're going to speak specifically about some of the albums you've released in the 16-year span, and more importantly, the big album that is busting the place, Children of Exodus. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Oh, my people are leaning on Africa, and we are dictators, we ancestors. When I see your flags and I smell your eyes, Lord, it brings me joy. Oh, lot of people are leaning on Africa. Oh, lot of people get vibes from your ancestor. The heart and mind will work to bless your soil. God, you bring we joy. Yes, me heart it a beating. Phonetically me speaking. The way we were. And our essence and our being. Every sunrise lets me know that hope is how we stay. 'Cause my eyes sometimes weary from these tears, and my heart is, yes, it always filled with joy. That when I see you smile, I know that this is a familiar love. Yeah, oh my people, I leaning on Africa, and we are dictators from your ancestor. When I see your flags and I smell your eyes, Lord, it brings me joy. Oh, lot of people are leaning on Africa. Oh, lot of people get vibes from your ancestor. The heart and mind will work.
Welcome back, everyone. I am rapping with Jelani Horton, the lead singer and producer of the band Bambu Station. And before the break, we spoke about the reason why he does music, really to touch the human spirit. And in this segment, we're going to speak specifically about some of the many albums you've released in your 16-year career. So I believe I met you in 2006, about the time that Break the Soil was coming out.
Correct.
And I remember, and I'm going to talk about the meeting because you spoke about Adams Morgan. I was in Bucom and someone came to me and asked who I was. And I told him I was a publicist, and they said, you have to work with Bambu Station. I got the info, heard some songs, and I fell in love with the band. So everything that you've spoken about, the music, touching the human spirit, I felt it, and I still feel it today. That was 2006. It's 2012 now. How many albums have you done as a band?
As a band, we have done 4 band albums. We've produced 3 various artist compilations, and we've produced 4 albums for other artists.
Right.
You know, so we've been busy and getting ready to be a lot more busy.
Okay, and the latest album that you have is called Children of Exodus. And I see that track 15 is Children of Exodus. I want to talk about that particular track. The writing, I know you collaborate with Ben and me. Why did you choose this name for the album?
Well, there's some stories, side stories contained in this album, and one of them is that when Bob Marley and the Wailers produced the album called Exodus, it had a big impact on our generation. And in the simplest form, we are saying we are children of that work. You know, so if Bob Marley and his colleagues can hear us, we are saying your work was not in vain. Not because Time magazine called it the album of the century, you know, but because the youth them were impacted, and we can reflect as adults and see the things that made a difference in our lives, you know, and hopefully the children of today will be impacted by this album, you know, and children and adults too, you know. But so in one way, Children of Exodus speaks directly to the Bob Marley and the Wailers album Exodus.
Okay.
We were blessed that one of the Wailers also came forward to perform on this album. Junior Marvin, lead guitarist for the Wailers. Also, we invited Brother Ben Ami, who is a spiritual leader of the African Hebrew Israelites in Dimona, Israel. Well, for folks that don't know Ben Ami, he led a literal, physical, and spiritual exodus of people of African descent living in America. They left America in 1967, went to the deserts of Liberia for 2 years, and then moved into Israel, where the Israel government put them in a ghetto of Dimona. We visited Dimona, and while it's not this lavish place, it's definitely testament to the hard work and the leadership, and you know, it's a lot of good things coming out of their community. So, you know, we thought, you know what, let's invite someone that has made an exodus, and that's in a position of leadership in our community, to speak to our audience, not sing, share your thoughts. And he accepted the invitation, and so we created some music that he's speaking on top of, and so that became the title track.
Awesome. Now, my favorite track on this album is Walk Your Mile. And it's because I've heard it played so many times, especially the acoustic set, I think. When we had that event with Muta Baruka, who came, I want you to talk about that particular song, because I think that's the song that's going to be playing in the background when we finish.
Yeah.
Who wrote that song? Tell us about that song, because I listened to some of the words, and the part that grabs me is when it says, go be an astronaut if you want to get high. Some of the words of the song, they're very important, because you, like you said, you're teaching people something, and I want you to talk about that, because I'm sure that anyone who's listening to this will agree that that particular song is a beautiful track.
Well, I actually wrote that song while I was in Washington, D.C. And what was happening was, at that time I was going through some hard times, you know, living out of my van. And around me, I would see all this construction going on. But I wasn't, you know, so things are being built, but I'm not a part of the growth, you know. And I realized that regardless of what I do or what our community does, the city will grow without us. You know, so we need to stop being consumers, and we need to be developers, we need to be civil engineers, we need to be entrepreneurs, you know, or else we just end up as consumers. And so Walk Your Mile is a further encouragement to, even if it's inconvenient, walk the extra mile, drive the extra mile to support the businesses that support you. Because there's so many businesses that we go and shop in, and we'll never see them at our children's birthday party. We'll never see management. We don't know the owners. The owners pack up, close their door, and then go to the suburbs of Virginia or wherever else. You know, so while I was in DC, I wrote that song, you know, to encourage. When I first came to DC, 14th Street was a place of, what would you call it? Sex workers, right? Now you walk 14th Street, there are lofts. And the sex workers have been pushed down another block. You know, you just see folks just pushed another block or whatever because this area is being gentrified. You know, so even the pimps, even the drug dealers, even the folks living on the street are seeing the changes because they're being pushed because they don't blend in with what's coming. So we need to walk our extra mile, you know, to make a difference.
I like that.
know?
I like that. So you have 16 tracks on this album. Just talk a little bit about the production. Who are some of the people who you collaborated with and where folks can go and get this album?
Well, first, folks can get the album on iTunes. They can also go to our website at bambustationband.com to get the album. And, you know, the Amazon.coms and the reggae shops around the country. As far as the folks that played on the album, we have some youth. There's a genius. I have to call him a genius. He played on the title track, Children of Exodus. He's a bass player. And when we recorded this, he was in 11th grade.
Wow.
So right now he's in 12th grade. And he played upright bass. His name is Tabari Lake. Also, Brother Junior Marvin from the Wailers has played on the album. Brother Ben Ami featured on a track. We have one of our foremost poets in the Virgin Islands. His name is Love Always, and he's also on the album. So quite a nice balance of contributors on the album, and you know, Bambu Station at its best, you know, doing what we do, playing the music how we play it, and giving thanks to those that came before us, and hopefully setting a standard for those who will come after us, you know.
Beautiful. Now tell us who are the current band members in Bambu Station.
Current members, we have Brother Cat Mitchell, Brother Kojo Johnson, Swamp Guinea, and myself. We work with Brother I.G. Biza. And so, you know, we're basically, you know, we're from St. Thomas and St. Croix. We try to keep that kind of membership because growing up in those islands, there's a particular perspective you're familiar with, you know. So so we keep that going like that.
Awesome. And then I know that you're in the Washington, D.C. area where you used to live before you moved back to the Virgin Islands, and you had your album released May 5th, and you're getting ready to do something in Washington, D.C. Talk about coming back to the D.C. area. How does it feel for you, and what can folks expect when they see you performing in D.C.?
Well, it feels, personally, it's a beautiful situation because I have family here still, you know, and I have a lot of friends, and we have a lot of supporters that have seen and been part of Bambu Station's growth, you know, and that's a blessing. So, you know, for the show, they can expect Bambu Station in what we do. You know, it's you know, our management don't like it when I say we're not entertainers because we're not. So the challenge is, how do you keep the people's attention when they're there in an entertainment environment? But you know, we're speaking about life, we're speaking real talk, you know, to touch people, you know. And if you've ever been touched in the realest of ways, then you'll understand what our goal is, you know, and that's the kind of music we do. And so the show in Washington, D.C., to see friends and family will be great. But, you know, after the show is where the blessings come, because you see people release this kind of tension. You know, living in concrete cities is tension. You know, you can't put your foot on the soil. And even the soil that is out here or in D.C., you know, it's not real soil, you know, and it bothers our body chemistry and energy, you know. So after a show, you see people kind of loosen up, and, you know, the vibes is there, you know. So it's wonderful.
Awesome. And I know that one of the things that you said in the past is vibes is everything. So I know that vibes really means everything to you. And you spoke about teaching through the music, doing the stuff to touch the human spirit. And I know apart from playing as the band leader and playing music, you also have a foundation. So briefly tell folks about that foundation before we wrap up.
Well, on our website, bambustationband.com, we have a page that for the foundation. And what it really is, it's something I formed in 2004 to facilitate the spreading of information, the raising of funds. You know, if someone identifies a project or issue that needs help, and the band can just lend itself to that scenario, you know, we do those things, you know. So we try to eliminate a lot of red tape. You know, once it's a credible issue or credible project, you know, we lend our energy to it. And so that's what it is. So we've done a whole lot of stuff, and we try to keep the focus on families or children, because if we impact the children, we in turn help the parents. If the parents are helped, then the family is helped. If the family is helped, the neighborhoods are helped, etc., etc. You know, so we try to keep it simple. So for more about the foundation, they just need to go to the website and they could read up about it.
Beautiful. Well, Jelani, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yes,
and thank you for spreading the message of love in the 16 years that you've been doing music. And again, for those of you who are watching, for more information, it is bambustationband.com, and that Bambu is B-A-M-B-U. Any last words you want to say to them before we wrap this up?
Children of Exodus, now available. Yeah.
I love that. All right, so keep it locked to All Things Pep Talk. Until we see you again on another show, take care.
But yet, it has brought us to a distant land. This distant land with its footprints on the sand. Yet, you can see it in our colors, the way in which we walk, our laugh, the joys in which we have had here in this part of this land. Seeing the retention, yes, let us lean on Africa. Let us lean on Africa, because that is our source, that is our life.